What is going on, Bulls fans? Preseason Game 3 is in the books. The Bulls were in Milwaukee tonight without most of their starters, and there was some good, some bad. I'm excited to talk about the young players, some of the things that I saw from Buzelis, as well as some of the other guys who are fighting for roster spots. So there's a lot to get into. There's also some big news that came down today, so let's tap in. Make sure to follow me at Shy Sports Ross on all the platforms. But the big news of the day, Lonzo Ball is expected to return to the court this Wednesday. The Bulls are hosting the Timberwolves at home, and Lonzo is expected to play for the first time since January of 2022. So shout out to Lonzo Ball. It's just an amazing story that he's been able to come back and play in any capacity is just awesome, and we're really looking forward to this game. So that's Wednesday. Tonight was a little bit of a different story. Like I said, most of the Bulls starters sat, everyone except for Josh Giddey. So that's everyone including Patrick Williams, Nikola Vucevic, Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Ayo Dosunmu. We didn't even see backups like Torrey Craig or Jalen Smith in this game, but what we did see was a lot of the young talent that is currently taking up some of the back half of the Bulls roster. And we know, the regular season is going to start next week. We know that the Bulls are going to have to cut down and get rid of some of these players. So you have guys like EJ Liddell, Kenneth Lofton, who haven't even played in the preseason yet, who are fighting for spots. But then you also have guys like Talen Horton-Tucker, who has played well in the preseason so far. So it was interesting to see how Billy Donovan managed those rotations tonight and kind of how everybody ended up playing together. So let's get into it. In the first half, the Bulls kind of came out hot. It felt like they were relying heavily on the three ball, and they were knocking it down for the most part. What I like to see, especially from the young guy, Buzelis, who came off the bench tonight, he didn't start with all of those starters out, but he was 3 for 9 from 3-point range and 5 for 13 overall, 15 points. He did foul out at the end of the game, so we'll get to that. But the reason I want to bring up the 3-point shooting is I feel like it would be key for Buzelis to become a reliable, consistent 3-point shooter if he wants to get more minutes on this team. I think that'll be the key to unlocking a larger role for him this season. I think he will get some playing time in the regular season, but if he's able to consistently knock down 3-pointers and be a threat to space the floor, it's going to be a lot easier to justify giving him minutes, even over players like Patrick Williams and Julian Phillips. And we should talk about Julian Phillips, who played a really good game last time out, but unfortunately left this game with an injury, again, severity unknown, similar to the last night when we had Ayo Dosunmu and Patrick Williams leaving with injuries. So not a great sign that the Bulls are already dealing with injury problems this early on, but it's also possible that these are very minor and it's just precautionary to hold these players out. It's really not easy to tell with the Bulls all the time. But Phillips ended up leaving the game. The Bulls had a lead at halftime. Buzelis hit a really nice 3 right before halftime. So it was good to see the ball moving. The offense was moving in motion, and it felt like they were drawing up plays to get guys open. And not only trying to get guys open, but they were also setting the tone by crashing the offensive boards. So Adama Sanogo, who started in this game and ended up playing 33 minutes, the most of anyone on the team, he was crashing all game long, banging down low. And mind you, the Bucks were playing their starters in this game. So this is Adama Sanogo going up against Giannis and Brook Lopez for these rebounds. And he was doing it, man. He was giving the Bulls some second chance opportunities. Adama Sanogo finished the game with 16 points and 15 rebounds, with 7 of those coming on the offensive end. So just a really big game for him overall, and a big game for the Bulls frontcourt depth. I mean, this is a team that has historically, at least under Billy Donovan, lacked some interior presence, and it looks like Adama Sanogo might be a good fit to bring in, some physicality to the lineup. So overall, I think that they were doing the right things, and for their credit, the Bulls were in this game for 2.5 quarters, and in a lot of ways, they were winning this game for 2.5 quarters. So in the third quarter, the Bucks started to pull away, and that's kind of when the struggles started to show, especially defensively. Milwaukee has Damian Lillard, and he was doing Damian Lillard things in this game, which is to be expected when you're playing in Milwaukee. So I think that the Bulls deserve credit. These young guys deserve their credit for fighting hard and keeping the Bulls in this game until late. Like I said, it felt like in the third quarter, Milwaukee started to pull away, but in the fourth quarter, the Bulls countered and they had a little bit of a comeback. Again, we see Talen Horton-Tucker being an offensive workhorse, shouldering the offense himself in times and being the only guy who could get a bucket. But he also plays hard on defense and he hustles. So I think Talen Horton-Tucker has made a really convincing case to make the final roster. I felt like Giddey didn't really show a whole lot tonight, even though he was in the starting lineup. There were some good defensive moments for Giddey, but overall, just not really fitting in offensively. Kenneth Lofton was another guy who stood out to me as someone who was hustling hard, had some really nice plays in the lane and in the paint. I think Lofton, Modest, they all have very high motors and they don't lack confidence, which I think showed in the way that they were willing to go toe-to-toe with the Bucks starters. You have a bunch of guys, and now you're telling them, yeah, go and play against Giannis and Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis, and they were doing it. They were taking it to them, but ultimately the closing efforts for the Bulls in the end came short. The Bulls weren't able to close the gap. The Bucks end up winning 111-107. So yeah, we don't have to, again, it's preseason. There's not a whole lot to really take away from a game like this, except when you look at the bottom half of the roster and how we're learning more about some of these players and kind of how they might end up fitting into the team long term. I think we learned tonight, in his absence, I think we learned that Jalen Smith is going to be an important part of the Bulls rotation. The fact that he is sitting along with, Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic tells me that Billy Donovan is going to rely on him this season and give him some minutes. So I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting that Dalen Terry was playing so many minutes alongside, again, these guys like DJ Stewart and EJ Liddell. I think that tells me and probably the rest of the world that Billy Donovan wants to see more out of players like Dalen Terry, out of players like Javon Carter, who also played in this game, and I felt like was kind of underwhelming. He did have 3 steals, Carter did, which is great, but he also only had 2 points on 6 shots, and this is a guy who's supposed to come in and give you instant 3-point shooting off the bench. So I think that tells us, Bidham's contract is not guaranteed. The Bulls do owe Javon Carter some money. There's a chance that they might be looking to go a different direction when the season starts. So I think it's interesting to watch how this plays out over the next week. The bottom half of the roster is not set. The Bulls still have a 2-way spot open as well. So that's an option. I think Sanogo and Talen Horton-Tucker have made very convincing cases to be a part of the team going forward. I think EJ Liddell was a little bit underwhelming. DJ Stewart has been underwhelming. I felt like Kenneth Lofton showed some flashes as well. So there's more to still determine. There's more to shake out with the Bulls roster. And obviously we'll know more on Wednesday when we see them play and hopefully get to see Lonzo Ball play. But I think that's all I have to say about Bulls preseason game 3, a loss to the Bucks in Milwaukee. Bulls came up short, but still a lot to learn from the roster in this game. So thank you guys for watching. We will talk again soon, and make sure to follow me at Shy Sports Ross on all the platforms. Take care.